welcome back to Play Kids Online. We're so glad that you can join us.
Yes, we are. Guys, today we're going to learn all about the church. But before we do, let's get ready to worship.
Here we go. Na na
We're gonna jump up all together as high as you can. You guys ready? 1, 2, 3.
With all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, with all my strength, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, with all my strength. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Love the Lord your God with all your heart, with all your soul, with all your mind, with all your strength. Oh yeah. I will love you, Lord, with all my heart, with all my soul, with all my mind, and with all my strength.
Worshiping God is so much fun.
Yes, it is.
So like I said earlier, we're gonna learn all about the church, the purpose of the church.
What does that mean?
Well, purpose is what something is made to do. So let's go to the Bible and look at a story about two people who showed us what the purpose of the church is all about. Paul and Silas.
God's story. Paul and Silas. So part of God's story is about two men named Paul and Silas, and it begins like this. Paul and Silas were friends who decided they wanted to serve God. Serving somebody means you try to help them. It can be as easy as holding open a door or setting the table, or as difficult as scraping chewed gum off the bottom of their shoes, or worse, picking out the lint from their belly button. Thankfully, God doesn't need help like that. God wanted Paul and Silas to help him by telling his story to others. God's story is all about his love. God is the main character, and he loves everyone and wants everyone in the whole world to know him. Do you think you can tell people God's story? One day, Paul and Silas were in a city called Philippi. Some of the people there didn't want to hear about God's story, and they got really mad at Paul and Silas for telling the story every single day. In fact, they got so mad they beat up Paul and Silas right in the middle of the street. Then they threw Paul and Silas in jail. Now remember, Paul and Silas were just trying to tell them about God, and now they found themselves behind bars in prison. Once they were in jail, you might think Paul and Silas got scared to keep serving God. But they didn't. In fact, they wanted to worship God. Worshiping can be playing an instrument, singing, praying, listening, sharing your things with people who need them, and other stuff too. But all those things are a way to show you really love God. Anyway, Paul and Silas decided to worship by singing songs to God. They sang so loud the whole jail could hear. It was like having a dance party right there in prison. Kind of weird, huh? But that's what Paul and Silas were doing. Sometimes you can look a little weird when you're serving others or worshiping God, but that's okay. Well, God was with Paul and Silas. Right in the middle of their dance party, a huge earthquake began to shake the whole jail. All the doors swung open, and Paul and Silas' handcuffs fell right off their hands. They were free. So, what do you think Paul and Silas did? Well, they knew that if they ran away, the jail guard would be punished for losing his prisoners. Paul and Silas didn't want that to happen, so they decided to stay in jail, even though the doors were open. When the earthquake was over, the guard thought he was in big trouble. He felt more sad than he had ever felt in his whole life. But suddenly Paul yelled out, "We're all still here. Nobody's run away." The guard was so surprised and happy that he invited Paul and Silas over for dinner and to spend the night. It might seem strange that the guard was going to get in big trouble if the prisoners were gone, and then he took two of them home with him. But that's what he did. Well, the guard's family was so happy he didn't get into trouble that they listened to Paul and Silas tell God's story. Because the story is such good news, the family realized God loves them. They decided they wanted to be a part of God's story too. Paul and Silas were allowed to go home the next morning. They knew now that serving God would be hard sometimes. But they decided that even if people were going to get mad at them, ask them to help them with things they didn't want to do, beat them up, send them to jail again, or worse, they would still keep on serving God by telling his story. And that's the story of Paul and Silas. So in case you missed it, here's the quick version. Paul and Silas were two friends. They wanted to serve God. They told people God's story. Some people didn't want to hear it. Those people threw Paul and Silas in jail. Paul and Silas weren't scared. They had a dance party to worship God. God opened the jail doors with an earthquake. Paul and Silas stayed to tell the jail guard about God. They went free and kept on serving God. And that's a part of God's story.
Welcome to Bible Trivia. This time we'll be asking questions about food. The first question for 200 points. The land promised to the Israelites by God was said to be flowing with milk and what? Was it A, cheese, B, honey, C, fruit, or D, water? The answer is B. The land promised to the Israelites by God was said to be flowing with milk and honey. The next question for 300 points. Who fasted for 40 days upon Mount Sinai? Was it A, Moses, B, David, C, Elijah, or D, Jesus? The answer is A. Moses fasted for 40 days upon Mount Sinai. The next question for exactly 3,722 points. What did Jesus give to his disciples as he said, "Take, eat, this is my body"? Is the answer A, honey, B, lamb, C, fish, or D, bread? The answer is D. Jesus gave to his disciples bread as he said, "Take, eat, this is my body." The next question for 80,000 points. What was Jesus tempted to turn into bread while he fasted in the wilderness? Was it A, his sandals, B, cacti, C, stones, or D, dirt? The answer is C. Jesus was tempted to turn stone into bread while he fasted in the wilderness. The next question for 1,000 points. How many days were Daniel and his friends tested on a diet of vegetables and water? Was it A, 14 days, B, 7 days, C, 10 days, or D, 30 days? The answer is C. Daniel and his friends were tested on a diet of vegetables and water for 10 days. The next question for 100 points. About how many people did Jesus feed with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish? Is the answer A, 20, B, 2,000, C, 500, or D, 5,000? The answer is D. Jesus fed about 5,000 people with 5 loaves of bread and 2 fish. The next question for 300 points. In the Gospel of John, Jesus called himself the bread of what? Was it A, life, B, all that is holy, C, life and death, or D, all who believe in him? The answer is A. In the Gospel of John, Jesus called himself the bread of life. The next question for no points. What juicy fruit, mentioned in Isaiah, comes in several varieties, including water, honeydew, and rock? Is it A, tomatoes, B, grapes, C, melons, or D, berries? The answer is C. The juicy fruit melons mentioned in Isaiah come in several varieties, including water, honeydew, and rock. The next question for 700 points. What drink from Proverbs 27 and 27 strengthens your bones, is good with biscuits, and in the right conditions becomes cheese? Is it A, coffee, B, orange juice, C, milk, or D, water? The answer is C. Milk strengthens your bones, is good with biscuits, and in the right conditions becomes cheese, according to Proverbs 27 and 27. And the last question for a bunch of points. You can move mountains with faith as small as what? Is it A, a grape, B, a berry, C, a fig, or D, a mustard seed? The answer is D. You can move mountains with faith as small as a mustard seed. Thanks for playing Bible Trivia. We hope you'll play again soon.
Wow, they went all over just to tell about Jesus? That's amazing.
That is. And guys, that is the purpose of the church, to go out there and tell everyone all about Jesus. How good he is, how loving he is,
How forgiving he is.
Yes, that's right. So I'm challenging all of you, even you, Tara, to go out there and tell someone about Jesus. Even if you don't know much about Jesus, just tell them what you learned today. Wow, we had so much fun with you guys today, didn't
Yes, we did.
Yes. Thank you so much for joining us this morning. We love all of you, and we cannot wait to see you next week. Same time, same place. Bye.
Bye.